Hey y'all, welcome back to the Skookum Report. Tonight's Bigfoot encounter is from a gentleman named Tom, who you guys might remember from a video I put up sometime last week called Bigfoot's Warning to Hunters, where him and his friend Vincent were hunting in the woods of Pennsylvania, and quite a bit happened to them there. Lots of tree falls, noises, mimicry, all kinds of good stuff. But this one, he says, now this is a part one of a two-parter. I'm probably going to do part two tomorrow night. He's had a lot of things happen to him in the woods over the years, and this was one that I thought was pretty cool, and a lot of you might be able to relate to it. So he writes, 15 years ago, I had a strange occurrence that happened to me when I was bow hunting by myself in central Pennsylvania. I was hunting an area that was 60 square miles, 10 miles long by 6 miles wide, with no houses or paved roads within it. It had hiking trails and game fields that were put in there and maintained by the state game land people, but that's about it. It's a pretty desolate area, but it's full of game. I never believed in Bigfoot or Sasquatch, so in fact I never really thought, I didn't really give any much thought to it at all that this occurrence had anything to do with Bigfoot whatsoever. Not for years, but within the past couple of years though, I've had other strange encounters which has made me believe in and research Bigfoot. Reading what others had to say about Bigfoot, and I had to go back and revisit this encounter because I often retold it, but could never explain it. I would talk about it every year or so because it was so strange. This is what happened. I was hunting this rectangular area which was 60 square miles, and there was a hiking trail which cut towards the center of the 60 square miles and led to a game field. I was hunting in the woods off of that field. I walked in a little more than 2 miles to get to the field, and that's where I began hunting. It was October, and the weather was beautiful. I had a summit tree stand and a PSE compound bow and a buck knife, and that was about it. I remember as I hunted that a turkey flew in and landed underneath my tree, staying for about 2 or 3 seconds, and then it flew off. I remember that another bow hunter walked out while it was still light, and I thought that he was walking out way too early. My thinking was that you could stay in the tree till pitch black, really, because no one could ever really tell when you got out of the tree stand. So I was thinking hunting way back in the woods was an advantage because you could stay in the tree till much later, and I don't do that anymore. That's a young man's mistake. Anyway, this guy left out early, and another guy rode in on a mountain bike while it was still light out. And I remember that there was a doe that showed up in the game field pretty late, and I hit a bleak call, hoping to lure this deer in since I had a doe tag. And the deer threw up its head, looked in my direction, and then bolted in the opposite direction. And that was the extent of my hunt. I didn't see or hear anything else until it was dark and time to get down. I got down out of the tree, put my portable tree stand on my back, grabbed my bow in my left hand, and started to walk the 2 miles back to my car. I walked out from the woods to the game field and made a right-hand turn to walk along the edge which led directly to the hiking trail that would lead me directly back to my car. To me, I was hunting as safely as I could while by myself. There was no way I could get lost, which is my greatest fear, getting lost by myself at night in the woods. And as I hit the corner of the field where it met the logging road, a deer exploded from the brush right next to me and crashed through the woods, breaking branches as it ran, 60 to 80 yards away. I was surprised but not really alarmed because I had kicked up many deer many times in my life. As I started walking down the logging trail, within a minute or two, I noticed that I heard the deer starting to come back. It was breaking branches, but it wasn't breaking branches, but I could hear its footfall coming back. And it walked all the way back until it was about 30 yards behind me and 15 yards off of the trail. I didn't think much of it because once or twice I had seen deer follow hikers through the woods while I was up in a tree stand. I thought, that's what this deer was doing. So I tested it to determine whether it was following me or just walking through the woods. I stopped abruptly, and when I stopped, it stopped. It always took an extra step or two, though, after I had stopped. And when I started, it started. This didn't really give me too much fear, but I have to admit that I was a little concerned about it. And basically I thought, okay, a big animal is following me. I was pretty sure it was a deer. In my whole life, I had never seen a bear in Pennsylvania, and thought that it was a bear. The thought that it being a bear never actually came into my mind. I thought it was a deer. I was pretty determined that this was a deer following me, and I had a 2-mile walk in front of me, so I was hoping that this deer would go away. As this thing followed me, I noticed that the cadence of his footfall was not 4 steps. People who have had similar experiences notice that the footfall is bipedal. Now, I didn't notice that. I only noticed that it wasn't 4 feet. I explained this away in my mind by thinking it was a deer, but it had 1 leg shot off. I continually went back to thinking it was a deer. I think my mind was protecting me against identifying it as something more dangerous. Now, this red light, green light game, well, with me stopping abruptly and then it stopping immediately, went on for about a mile. I was halfway to my car. All of a sudden, this thing took 3 or 4 quick single steps, and it went from being 30 yards back to about 15 yards behind me, but still 15 yards in off the trail. I said out loud, "Nope, that's too close," and I immediately turned around and walked back the 15 yards. Now, I had not used a flashlight up until this point, but I had one with me. I hadn't needed it yet because I was on the logging road which led directly to my car. I turned around and walked back the 15 yards, and I turned on the flashlight, thinking in my mind that I would scare this thing away, the deer or whatever it was. At worst, I was thinking, okay, maybe it's a coyote. And when I got back to where I thought it was in the woods, I turned on the light and kind of thinking, I've got you now. I was surprised that I saw no eye shine. I slowly shined the flashlight on everything that I could possibly see. Every leaf, every twig, every tree, nothing. I saw nothing. I know for sure that deer aren't smart enough to shut their eyes when a light is being shined on in their eyes, and yet this deer had no eye shine. Now, I was positive that whatever it was had not moved as I walked back the 15 yards or so, and I was confident that whatever it was still there. It had to be standing there in the woods, 15 yards away. I pretended to walk away 2 steps, and then I turned and rushed back the 2 steps to try and startle it to move, and nothing. I did this maybe 2 more times, nothing moved. Then after a minute or 2 of seeing nothing and hearing nothing, I started to walk back down the road again, and I know that I was more concerned then because I took out my buck knife and I had it open, holding it in my right hand, and I put the flashlight, which was a mini mag light, in my mouth, and when I was about 30 yards away, it started following me again. I thought, what are you? The thought of Bigfoot never once came into my mind. I didn't even think they existed. Thank God, because if I did, I don't know what I would have done. I probably would have locked up with fear. I still played the occasional stop and start game with it, but I started to talk to it out loud. I started calling it, "Hey, dumbass." I think I did this to calm my nerves. I would say it out loud. "I hear you back there, dumbass. You think you're sneaking up on me, but you're not, and I can hear you walking the whole time." I remember starting to become very concerned about this thing. As I was walking the last mile, I replayed the 3 or 4 steps over in my head that I had heard when it had come close to me. I thought, how could that thing take 4 steps and cover 15 yards in just 4 steps? I remember saying it out loud again. What is this? I had absolutely no idea. I pretty much knew by then it wasn't a deer, though. And as I finally approached my car, maybe the last 100 yards, I couldn't hear it anymore. I walked down to the car, opened up the back, and quickly threw my gear in, all helter-skelter, and I jumped into the front seat, shut the door, and locked it. And I breathed a sigh of relief. I was going to live. I hadn't let myself become too panicked on the way down because I had such a long walk in front of me. But once I got into my car, I realized I had been pretty concerned. I called my brother-in-law and told him the whole story. He thought maybe it was a mountain lion or a bear. But I said, I think I would have seen the eyes of the mountain lion or a bear, reflect back in when I had the flashlight out. I would have seen eyes shine, and we could never figure it out. It just ended up being a weird story that I would tell around a campfire or when people told scary stories. I never thought of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, never. And then 2 years ago, I had the first-hand Class B experience, roughly the same area, and I know y'all heard that. That's the one where Bigfoot's warning to hunters. I did last week. You can find it in the playlist. And he says, I had that Class B experience in roughly the same area, maybe 10 miles away, which made me research Bigfoot. And in doing that, I read many Bigfoot encounters of other people that were almost exactly like this one, where they would be escorted out of the woods. In researching Bigfoot, I purchased this book, Missing 411, one of David Paulides in the series. And one of the stories in the book that I read was about a young boy who went missing in the early 1900s. And he basically disappeared right from where I parked my car. And he was never found. That's it. That's the story for tonight. And I'll have part 2 up tomorrow night. And that's a trip, just being escorted out of the woods, being followed by something at night by yourself. I just would be a little shook up myself. I know, I can speak for me. I'd be a little shook up, a little concerned. But if you or anybody you know has had an encounter or a sighting, please shoot me an email at skookumreport@gmail.com. That's skookumreport@gmail.com. And I'll be sure to get it up on the channel for you guys. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button and leave me a comment. Let me know if you have any ideas or just want to say hi. So I'll see you again tomorrow night for part 2 of Tom's encounters in the Pennsylvania woods. And tomorrow's is pretty good. I got some pictures with this one that he took when he went back to the site of where this event took place, the one I'm talking about doing tomorrow. Pretty interesting. So come back and see me for part 2 tomorrow night. And for now, we'll tell you all good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for coming back to the Skookum Report, guys. I appreciate y'all. Take care. Bye.